Well, EFF Member of Parliament Veronica Mente is part of the MPs who make up the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. She joins us tonight to talk more about André Reyter's appearance. A very good evening to you, ma'am. Grateful for your time tonight. So, was the session with André Reyter very helpful, you think?
Yeah, thank you very much, Rototo, and thank you for having us. The session of today didn't come of much help, and it did not meet our expectations, because you'd remember that Mr. Reyter willingly approached the public platform through the media and spoke of all the ills and the corrupt activities within the Eskom space, which was at some point sanctioned by senior members of the governing party, citing that ministers have been issuing instructions that allow certain people to eat, even if it's for a little bit. But today, he did not want to give us a name, citing that those names have been forwarded to the law enforcement. However, interestingly, when he was asked if he has been cooperating with the law enforcement and he had submitted any sworn affidavits to this effect, he says no, the law enforcement has not approached him. Thus, he is not sure how far the investigation is. However, he had listened to the president during the SONA, citing that there are arrests that have been made and in the cartels and in the space of Eskom. But it's just not clear as to what is it that has been happening in terms of all those arrests. Are they arrested for what he's saying happened, or are they arrested for something else? To this point, we were not satisfied with what he has given us, and thus we will be dealing with this matter at a deeper and get a deeper understanding and investigate it further as Parliament.
And part of getting a deeper understanding, as I understand it, is possibly in the next few days, next few weeks, calling the likes of the Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan, because De Reyter says he did speak to him about his concerns about corruption and political involvement. The government advisor, Sidney Mufamadi, also on your radar. What would you want them to answer specifically? Veronica Mente, are you still with us?
There's quite a number of issues. Yes.
Please continue, ma'am. We had lost you for a moment. Please continue.
All right. There's quite a number of issues that are cited by De Reyter on his submission to Parliament, which he owned up to it at the beginning of the hearing, that indeed this is his submission, and he spoke to the submission on certain areas that he was asked about. So out of the submission, I may mention the few. There is Treasury that must come and clarify how was Eskom allowed to procure outside the procurement processes through a system called free text. And that free text allowed Eskom officials to submit procurement and ask for any item outside the rules of procurement processes and even inflate prices in some instances. There are areas of a covert investigation that he has, him and one member of the board have sanctioned, and that particular investigation was not really sanctioned by Eskom board in its entirety, was not sanctioned by all officials, COO and CEOs, and every other person who was involved in the executive of Eskom, but it was also not paid for by Eskom, thus making it very suspicious as a rogue unit of some kind that was happening there. Therefore, we would like to understand if the intelligence of South Africa did sanction such an intelligence to happen at Eskom and take place. And the other area that is very much interesting is that of the SAPS and its investigative arms like Hawks to come and clarify certain areas of, did he convene them? what is it that he gave them to investigate? How far are they with those investigations? Who are involved on those investigations without actually dealing with the merits of the matter? And there's also issues of certain companies that own vehicles and dealers that must also be exposed, and we must get those clarities. So there's quite a number of issues that are cited on that submission,
right,
which we still have to deal with clarifications in going forward.
And this controversial off-the-books investigation, as termed by News24 in their reporting today, is made even more controversial from what they've put forward, because the person who led the investigation, the lead investigator, Tony Oosthuizen, they say, is a former apartheid-era spy who claims to have killed about 20 anti-apartheid activists. How concerning is that for you, that a person of that nature would have been called upon to work on an investigation for a state-owned entity?
It's shocking. However, it's not really shocking, because if you remember, Tembi, even at the beginning when the Reyter was employed, we did cite the matter of people that are actually of a choice, and the choice that the Minister of SO is made with the President, and everyone else was involved in appointing the Reyter, that this practice, with the newly found practice of Eskom identifying white people, is actually reversing all the gains that we've made in South Africa. You would have seen the removal of Econ Oil, the removal in majority of all service providers that were black. So this one of appointing an apartheid spy is not shocking. It is actually a system that came back with the Reyter to Eskom. It's a system that was just drafted, and it was implemented to deal with black people. And in that report and the submission, which I'm not sure if you have seen the submission, the black sites and all of that, you can see how it is very easy for the Reyter to mention the names of black people, and especially with the outcomes of this so-called investigation does not really give us any information, but even with the names that he said today is not going to give us, it's only pointing to the direction of black people. So you can see that apartheid system was being implemented and enforced by the Reyter at Eskom.
Final question then, given the long list of corruption allegations at Eskom, and it appears that list is growing, right? Every time you hear someone speak, you hear something new that's more shocking than the previous allegation. I was listening to the chairperson of Scopa, Mkhuleko Hlengwa, speaking to our Atim Tongana, and he was saying, once you've spoken, for example, to the people from Treasury, you've spoken maybe to the National Police Commissioner, you've had a word from the Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan, Sidney Mufamadi, etc., it may perhaps be worth going back to the idea of an inquiry spearheaded by Scopa to delve even deeper into this. Would the EFF endorse such a decision post those engagements?
If you follow the processes of Parliament, I think before we were due for a recess, I think the last sitting of and made an amendment to a motion of the DA, which was calling for an investigation at Eskom through a process of an inquiry or an ad hoc committee that will be specializing with these particular matters, including that of the Reyter and his kind of an expose that he has made in the public domain. So we were supporting that process from that time. We still support the process that is going to look into Eskom through the parliamentary mechanisms, and we will be part of that process to make sure that we get to the bottom of this. Remember, space of Eskom and be stolen and not service the public out there.
Veronica Mente, EFF MP and member of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. Thank you so much for your time tonight, ma'am.